No one saw this coming as things had taken another wild turn as it pertains to the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. situation, as following Mark Shapiro coming out and revealing some interesting details surrounding Vlad's future with the Blue Jays, another new report has dropped that is not only intriguing, but could change the landscape of the Jays going forward. So to break that down, as well as discuss in a possible decision that the Jays face ahead of opening day, which is approaching very, very fast. Stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we get into it, we have a special guest once again. Welcome back, Avery. Last time we were discussing, it was about a month ago, spring training getting underway, all these prospects, and now we're back just less than a week before opening day, and we have some crazy things to go over today. So first of all, Avery, thank you very much for joining, and I'm excited to get this rocking here today.
Thank you for having me back. That means I did a good enough job again. If you asked me to come back, we're going to talk about real ball players today, which is nice. I do like the prospects, but sometimes it's nice to talk about the expensive guys.
Yeah, you talked about Ryan Jennings. We probably won't be talking about him in this video, though. Shout out to him. He had a decent spring. But let's dive right into it. I want to start with the hard-hitting stuff, and nothing hits harder than the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. convo. Now, Hector Gomez came out late last night with another what we'll call a report at this point. And we know Mark Shapiro, he came out and said a bunch of different things. We're going to dive into some of his comments as well. And essentially what he came out and said, if you missed it, that he's confident the Jays are going to extend Vladimir Guerrero Jr. We'll dive into some of the comments in a little bit as well, as Vladdy spoke out himself. However, we have an interesting report here from Hector Gomez. Now, March 17th, they said that the Jays are planning to make a new offer. And then late last night, Avery came out and said that this could happen sooner than expected. Now, Hector's been off and on. However, the timing of this specifically surrounded and paired with Mark Shapiro saying that Vladdy is going to be a Blue Jay in his eyes, and Schneider coming out and saying that Mark Shapiro doesn't often raise the expectations of Jays fans, which made his optimistic comments about Vladdy so notable. Where do you currently stand on this? And I guess another point, do you think that Hector Gomez is going to be on the ball with this one?
Hector's an idiot, but I like reading his stuff sometimes, especially when good things happen.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, him and Carlos are going to report the worst things in the world, but if you get a good thing from Hector, I'm an idiot and I'm also going to believe it a lot of the time. So Hector's half right from the March 17th scoop that he had. He said this could be happen sooner than expected. I don't know how connected he is, but it makes sense in both. You want to have the exclusive negotiating window with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and the only time you can do that and not have any other teams worried about is if you do it before he is a free agent at the end of the year. So the Mark comments are a little different, where they're saying, hey, maybe you let him go to free agency to see like what he's actually worth, because he's negotiating one-on-one at this point. There's no outside forces. Anything he's heard or what he would think from his camp is he's only going to make more money if he goes to free agency. And that's not necessarily the case. You could get there and you see like kind of what Pete Alonso dealt with. They're obviously different players, totally different how they're going to deal with their free agency. But Pete Alonso realized the market wasn't there for him. If Vlad goes to free agency and sees the market isn't there for a right-handed first baseman who's just going to hit, it's like, oh, okay, maybe I'll tail between my legs. Maybe I'll come back to the Blue Jays and do this. So he's negotiating against his own number, and that'll make him happy at this point. So I understand the Jays are going to want to get this done. Really, really interesting that Shapiro came out and said this today. Like, totally blew me away, but I'm fine with this report. I do think it's a real report.
Yeah, I think this one, I mean, you mentioned it. Hector's been hit or miss. He's been right in some regards. We also think back to the February 18th date. That night, he came out and said that he thought the sides were getting close. So he's been wrong on some accounts. However, shout out to him. March 17th, he came out and said they're going to plan to make a new offer. And then 2 or 3 days later, Shapiro, which this front office almost never does, actually gave some words that sounded like a human being and not a robot in a press conference, and saying that they feel like, even though there was some robotic comments in there, I will go ahead and say that, but you can go ahead and pause and read some of the comments as well. But he basically, you can see the third paragraph there. What you're trying to do is determine for each side where the comfort level is and hope that they overlap using all the information they have. But it becomes an interesting point now, and I'll ask you this. Obviously, we've been talking about Vladdy. It's going to be a big distraction. You were actually, you talked with a lot of the players. Of course, you had a couple interviews on them on your guys' channel. Shout out to that. It's at the point now where, and I spoke about this with Keegan as well, how much of a distraction, do you think this is going to be for the Toronto Blue Jays, fan base? Obviously, we're all diehard fans, or you're a casual fan, like whether it is, it's going to be a distraction, I think, for a lot of people here. And B, do you actually think they close the deal before opening day, which last time we spoke was days, weeks away. now is less than a week away?
I don't think so. I think Vlad's still in his head wanting to make a ton of money that might not make sense. I think they can get the deal done. And if you're not talking before opening day, I think that's really dumb. So I think there will be talks, but I think to knock Vlad down a little bit, I've always been saying kind of this offseason that I think there's a lot of things that can happen to get a discount on what Vlad's asking for. And it will take an astronomical MVP vote season for him to be above the number he is asking for. So I think as the front office, they'll try and wait it out to see if they can kind of get closer to the number they originally wanted. I don't think they'll be the 340 over 10. It'll be a lot more than that. Maybe they settle on 500 as the total number. But I think a lot of things will happen. I don't think it gets done before opening day. It would be the coolest thing ever. But I just don't think it's going to happen. I think we get a super early signing in free agency before the new year. So like a December sign for Vlad.
Yeah. Okay. So you're saying before the end of the season as well. It's an interesting one. I think ultimately by the end of it, I don't think so either. I mean, we're 6 days away now. It's also interesting that he came out and said all this stuff right before, spring training, only a couple more games left. And then the Jays are right back in it with all these different question marks about this team. So let us know down below what your thoughts are on this. It is interesting. The comments himself, I think, were also very telling. I don't think he comes out and says this unless they're confident they're willing to go to a number that they think Vladdy will accept. But at the same time,
it's the most public negotiation I think they've had in decades. It's insane how they just keep going back and forth through the media to say numbers. For a front office that's tight-lipped, this is the least tight-lipped negotiation they've had in forever. It's been really different.
And you have to assume now that, and again, Keegan Madison came out and said the initial leaks from the 450 million, the 500 million were on Vladdy's side, not necessarily Ross's side, but now they're publicly coming out and addressing it. It's a weird situation, at least it pertains to what we're used to regarding the Toronto Blue Jays. And 50 million-ish apart, Shapiro also said that's an oversimplification based on only part of the information. So hopefully Hector Gomez is right. I'm going to have faith in him. Any final thoughts on this before we move on?
No, I thought from everything I had heard that the first ask was 585, and maybe he had come down a little bit from that. And again, like you said, it's an oversimplification. You don't know the opt-outs. He wants the present value money. That's what I believe to be true. That 500 present value is what he wanted, and the Jays did not want that. They wanted to defer some money. So that's what he's talking about, I believe, as the oversimplification of deferred and present value money, as how they are apart.
Yeah, and it seems like ever since, and again, Shy reported this, Ben Nicholson Smith reported the $500 million present value thing, and then Passan said a little bit after that, a little bit over 500. So if I'm the Jays, I just get it done at that point. Just pay the extra. I mean, it's a lot, but I would just get it done there. But let's change topic a little bit now. Let us know down below your thoughts are on that. We are now 6 days away from opening day. We were talking about could-be's in the last video about prospects, and we will touch on that a little bit. But last night, I covered it in the video. The Jays made multiple moves here. They optioned some guys. Arelvis is down. Jake Bloss is down. All these different things. However, you look at the Fangraphs projected lineup, and I'm very interested to see what your thoughts are on who you think is going to start on opening day, because I have a pretty, I guess, strong opinion on who I think is going to be playing here, and B, are we ready to overreact to the Will Wagner third base game that we saw yesterday afternoon? Because it is going to be interesting. And I also want to get at the end your quick thoughts on your guy Trey Savage, who had a dominant spring training debut. But we can start with the lineup. How are you feeling now after the spring training? The whole, I mean, it's not officially over yet, but it's, for all intents and purposes, over now. And who do you think won camp? And shout out to your guy, Ernie Clement. I think he's going to solidify himself in there.
Yeah, I think Ernie's going to start as well. There's a lot of guys with decent camps. Like, I'm not too worried about kind of anyone. The prospects who we were, the Rodin, he's a winner from camp. The loser from camp is George Springer. Didn't give anyone any hope to think the year's going to be different. Spring training stats do mean nothing. Like, you get to opening day, they reset. No one's going to remember what you did in spring if you have a good year and you had a bad spring. The vets, you hope they figure it out, that they're working on stuff. George, it just doesn't give me any confidence at this point. But everyone else who was a position player was pretty good. Davis, guy that I like a lot, obviously. But we got back to some walk rate stuff from him, hitting the ball hard in the zone, trying to do damage, trying to get extra base hits. Like, what I saw from this offense in the spring is what I want to see from them in the regular season. I don't think there's too many worries when we get there. Roden is an interesting one because he does not have a 40-man roster spot at this point. And I think Barger's another guy who had a good spring. I mean,
Miles Straw too, right away.
Miles Straw had a great spring. It is crazy. Like Gold Glove defense, and then you can hit a little bit. Those are the guys that they love. But yeah, dealing with some of those guys, the Rodens, the Bargers, I think Roden has to be so undeniably good in AAA that they're forced to call him up. They called him out at the start of spring. He's done pretty much everything they've asked for. But you do the Spencer Horwitz thing, in my opinion, where, hey, George is struggling so much. You need a guy to hit right-handed pitching and come up because Roden's not, I don't think he's going to do a ton against left-handed pitching. Maybe George can do that, but it's like, hey, be undeniable in AAA, then we'll call you up and get you regular at-bats. I think that's how that is going to play out.
Yeah, and I think they made the job a lot more difficult on the front office. You mentioned it. David Schneider started off a little slow, really good spring. Barger, really good spring. Miles Straw, really good spring. And all these guys now, the guy who's really clogging things up is George Springer as it pertains to clogging up a spot from Alan Roden in specific. And we were talking about him. I mean, Ross Atkins, he was the number one guy that he called out publicly prior to spring training. And then we also saw Mark Shapiro yesterday come out and also praise Alan Roden. I don't think he starts in the team either. And you mentioned the Spencer Horwitz thing. I really hope that it is that situation, but faster, because they called up Horwitz really late last year. It was way too late. They need to win this year. And it transitions now. Who do you have starting opening day? Specifically, again, you kind of have the infield mostly drawn out, especially if you have Ernie Clement there. But regarding DH and even just beyond opening day, how fast would you pull the plug on somebody, probably George Springer, depending who it is, to get Alan Roden in there if after 15, 20 games, or even 30, or however sample size you want to go, the team is starting to struggle? Because I think this is about as much pressure as every single person in the organization, front office and coaching wise, has faced in their entire tenure here.
I think they give Springer 60 plus games to try and figure it out. We've seen them try and give him the leash, and he's making so much money that I think how they want to get money to other players in free agency, it's not, hey, we're going to sign you to this big deal, but by the end of it, we're going to want you dead. We're not going to want you to be a part of this baseball team anymore. So it's going to be unfortunate if he continues to hit poorly, and that conversation needs to be had. It was a conversation to be had last year with the leadoff spot. I think if he starts opening day, like the 6th or 7th hitter on the team, then we know they're at least being rational about what we've seen from George Springer. So I think it's 2 months plus before you're really dealing with that. Maybe an injury happens, so Roden's called up faster, but I think they're going to give George a ton of leash. Like, as much as it might make some people mad, I think it's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think so too, unfortunately, which I know a lot of fans are tuned out.
The best case scenario is he's good, and we all want that to happen.
Yeah, and I think the issue then arises with Alan Roden is where he fits in. David Schneider, Addison Barger, Miles Straw, all these different guys. One final thing before we wrap up here. Give me your projected opening day outfield. We'll just go with that for the sake of it, because I think the infield is pretty locked in. You can correct me if I'm wrong. So I'll start here from Clement, Bichette, of course, Jimenez, Vladdy, Kirk, starting pitcher. And then from there, hit me with your outfield and DH, because there's been some rumblings about, of course, Dalton Varsho playing DH. There's been some rumblings about, opening day, of course, not once he's healthy. Let's assume Varsho is playing, I guess, DH and opening day. Is that kind of where we are?
DH for sure if he's
healthy,
making the opening day. So I think he will DH opening day. I know they were talking about sending him down, but again, I think he can rehab it. He's a good enough fielder, in my opinion, where he will be fine with BP reps, pregame reps, and get into a little bit of some live stuff pregame to deal with it. I think it's like a Nathan Lucas thing, to be honest. Going to start in center field because you're going to get Zach Eflin game 1. I think he's if he can't hit right-handed pitching, he's not going to be a big leaguer. So, like, if Nathan Lucas is there breaking camp with the team, I think he's going to start in center field. Like, he was a 1-something weighted runs created plus guy in his short stint last year. Someone could just tread water in center field. I would like to know Straw's splits against lefties to see if that's a good thing to have, as they can kind of platoon to make things happen. Because Davis can play infield. He can play outfield as well as the other guy. And Barger's the same thing. They all kind of play the third base and outfield as your four possible bench. I guess you got Heineman in there too. So one of those guys isn't probably breaking with them. But yeah, I'll go Lucas is starting in center field. You got George and right, and then Santander is playing left on opening day.
Okay, I like it. It's interesting. I think his splits, correct me if I'm wrong now, I think it's like 760 OPS against lefties last year, something like that, maybe a bit lower than that. And let's keep in mind, or maybe it was the last full year he had in the MLB, because obviously last year is majority in the minors. But one other thing, what about Lopes? What about Joey Loperfido? Because now, again, Fangraphs has him projected as center fielder. I don't think the Jays are going to start him in center field opening day. I just think you mentioned it, Nathan Lucas, he's like 30 years old now. He's like a guy who's been around in the organization forever. I also think that Nathan Lucas probably gives you a better chance to win than Joey Loperfido does on opening day, just given the current state of him. But even though Loperfido is almost 26 years old, the question mark then becomes, what do you do? Does he start the season in AAA? I think there's a good chance that a lot of these guys that we're talking about now, even David Schneider, Addison Barger, it's going to be there's a huge logjam to fill surrounding, especially the outfield spot with how many players can play it. And then Varcho's way ahead of schedule. He'll be back in center field in no time as well. And there is still a world, Keegan's been saying, that Varcho does play center field opening day, albeit a pretty small world. There is still a world where that happens. And let's also not forget, Will Wagner, if that's the case, won't be in the opening day lineup against the righty.
Yeah, that seems stupid.
Yep.
To be honest, I think that's, if he's going to be in the big leagues, he's got to be playing against righties.
Leadoff, maybe.
Too many good players and good hitters is a great problem to have. And when we were dealing with it at the end of last year, it was the opposite of the problem we had. So this is a great spot to be in. I think in with Lopes, some swing changes. The spring hasn't been fantastic, but I think if him and Roden go down to AAA, there's a non-zero chance that he is the guy who's inevitable. It's like, hey, we need to bring Loperfido up when everyone just thinks it's Roden. That's a guy who's kind of found a way to hit everywhere he's been all the time, except for a little bit in the big leagues last year. So I believe in Loperfido too, but it's just, you want the younger guys to get every day at bats, and you can deal with Nathan Lucas taking 2 months and then, hey, oh no, you got to DFA Nathan Lucas after that. And for some of the younger guys to get some spots.
Yeah, I'm going to throw it out there. I think there's a chance they also go with Miles Straw opening day center fielder instead of Nathan Lucas, just because it's Ross Atkins. I think there's a chance there. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Let us know down below your thoughts are on the opening day, and also, of course, the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. situation. Hector Gomez has been right before, but he's also been wrong. But I think all Jays fans want him to be a Toronto Blue Jay. But Avery, thank you for joining once again. We'll have you on sometime again in the future. And we can at least now say that we're a week away, less than a week away from opening day. And hopefully the Jays can get, we need a winning season. I think ultimately that's what we need, just to win games. And before, since this is the last time we'll be having videos from opening day, give me your prediction from the first 10 games for the Toronto Blue Jays record. A bit on the fly here, calling you out on the
10.
spot.
So
or you can go first 2 series. I don't know the exact amount of games.
First 2 series. So we get the Nats in the second series. 4 games with the O's, 3 games with the Nats, I believe. That's 7.
Let's go 7.
We're in 4-3 for sure.
Love
like it. It's just barely above. There's a little bit of excitement, but 4-3 is what I'll go with after 7.
That's what mine was as well. And do you think the Jays are going to actually make the playoffs this year? We're gonna look back on this at the end, so pick carefully.
I do. I'm financially invested personally in their over win total, so I will go with a make the playoffs this year.
Love it. You got we all know you got a great line there at the 76.5, I believe.
76.5. Worst line ever made.
Fantastic. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let us know down below what your thoughts are. Avery, thank you once again for joining us. We'll have you on soon. Check him out. Gay14 link will be in the description. His Twitter will be in the description. Have a fantastic day, everyone. See you later.